Rain lashed against the windows. Wind howled like a banshee. Sarah huddled deeper into her armchair, a book trembling in her hands. The power flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness. She sighed, pushing a stray strand of hair from her eyes. It was going to be a long night. Her gaze drifted to the newly acquired antique mirror propped against the far wall. It had been a lucky find, tucked away in a dusty corner of an antique shop. The ornate frame, crafted from dark wood, was intricately carved with strange symbols. She had been drawn to its mysterious beauty, the way it seemed to hold secrets within its depths. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in an ethereal white. Sarah saw it then, a flicker of movement in the mirror's reflection. Her breath hitched in her throat. She had been alone in the house, hadn't she? She told herself it was just the storm, playing tricks on her eyes. The wind howled again, rattling the windows in their frames. It was just the storm. It had to be. Another flicker of lightning, this time closer, momentarily bathed the room in an eerie glow. The antique mirror seemed to pulse with an unnatural light, drawing Sarah's gaze. She couldn't tear her eyes away. It was as if the mirror itself was calling to her, beckoning her closer. Slowly she rose from the armchair, her bare feet padding silently across the wooden floor. Each step was hesitant, filled with a growing sense of unease. But something compelled her forward, an invisible force she couldn't resist. As she drew closer, she noticed details she hadn't seen before. The intricate carvings on the frame seemed to writhe and shift in the flickering candlelight. They resembled faces, grotesque and contorted in silent screams. Reaching the mirror, Sarah hesitated. Her reflection stared back, her eyes wide with a fear she couldn't disguise. But there was something else, something lurking in the depths of the reflection, hidden in the shadows behind her, something dark and hungry. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The figure in the mirror, the one lurking in the shadows behind her reflection, was clearer now. It was tall and skeletal, its form shrouded in darkness. Two eyes, burning like hot coals, stared out at her. Terror, cold and paralyzing, gripped her heart. She tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. She tried to tear her gaze away, but the mirror held her captive, its gaze a vice around her soul. The figure in the mirror moved. It took a step closer, its clawed hand reaching out from the darkness, towards her reflection. Sarah felt a chill race down her spine, as if an icy hand had grasped her heart. She wanted to run. She needed to run. But her legs refused to obey, rooted to the spot as if made of stone. She was trapped, ensnared by the mirror's malevolent gaze. Whispers from the abyss. A low, guttural growl emanated from the mirror, reverberating through the room. The sound sent shivers down Sarah's spine, raising goosebumps on her arms. It was a sound that spoke of ancient evils, of things best left undisturbed. Then a voice, raspy and filled with malice, whispered her name, Sarah. The whisper seemed to slither around her, coiling around her like a serpent. It was close, so close she could almost feel its putrid breath on her skin. Join us, Sarah, the voice whispered again, closer this time. Join us in the darkness. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, her head shaking in denial. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. It was just a nightmare, a figment of her overactive imagination. But the whispers continued, growing louder, more insistent. They wormed their way into her mind, planting seeds of doubt and despair. Each whisper chipped away at her resolve, urging her to surrender to the darkness. Trapped. The mirror's surface rippled like water disturbed by a falling stone. The reflection of the room wavered, twisted, and then vanished altogether, replaced by a swirling vortex of shadows and light. Sarah watched in horror, her breath trapped in her chest. The skeletal figure in the mirror was closer now, its burning eyes fixed on her with an unholy hunger. It reached out, its long, bony fingers stretching towards her, as if trying to cross the divide between the mirror and the real world. Sarah stumbled back, a scream finally ripping from her throat. But it was too late. The mirror's pull was too strong. She felt a cold hand close around her wrist, its grip like iron. Panic surged through her as she was dragged towards the mirror, her fingers scrabbling for purchase on the smooth surface, but there was nothing to hold on to. "No!" she screamed, her voice raw with terror. "Please, no!" The mirror's prize. The cold, clammy touch on her wrist pulled her forward, dragging her inexorably toward the swirling vortex of the mirror. Sarah struggled against the unseen force, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drumbeat of doom. Her reflection stared back at her, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth open in a silent scream. The shadowy figure behind her reflection grinned, a gruesome, skeletal smile that sent chills down her spine. Then everything went black. When Sarah opened her eyes, she was staring at a dimly lit room. It was her living room, but different, colder, more sinister, and the air was thick with the stench of decay and despair. She tried to move, to stand, but her limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. She was trapped, held fast by an unseen force. A low chuckle echoed around her, sending shivers down her spine. "Welcome home, Sarah," the raspy voice whispered. No escape. Sarah turned her head, her heart pounding in her chest. Standing before her was the skeletal figure from the mirror, its burning eyes boring into her soul. It was taller now, more imposing, and its grin was wider, more predatory. She was trapped in the mirror world, a prisoner of the darkness that resided within, and there was no escape. As the figure approached, Sarah caught sight of her reflection in the mirror, but it wasn't her staring back. It was the shadowy figure, its burning eyes gleaming with triumph. It had taken her place, claimed her reflection as its own. The figure leaned close, its putrid breath washing over her like a wave of nausea. "You are ours now, Sarah," it whispered, its voice a chilling rasp. "Forever." Sarah closed her eyes, a single tear rolling down her cheek. She was lost, swallowed whole by the mirror's darkness. The haunted mirror had claimed its prize,